right, we are finished with the Epic series, at least for now. We're going to pick that back up probably in the spring and do the second part of that journey through the Old Testament. But right now we're switching gears and we're going to talk about the best Christmas ever. The best Christmas ever. And I thought about this. I don't like to make statements like this. It sounds a little hokey. It sounds a little bit like I'm trying to hype people up to come hear a sermon series, but I'm really not, because what I'm focused on, just personally, just me right now, is I want to have the best Christmas ever by doing that in terms of what matters the most. And we're going to walk through what it takes. What does it look like for you and for me to, in 2015 to potentially have the best Christmas you've ever had in terms of what really matters. So I took some time to think this week. I really did. I spent some time thinking this week about my absolute most cherished Christmas memories growing up. And I've shared some of those with you in times past. When you've been here 10 years, by the way, some of your stories get repeated because I don't have that many stories that they could stay new. I mean, if you think about, there's a lot of stories that happened in the last decade. But this is one of my favorite ones. I literally just thought, what do I remember? And I want to invite you to do the same thing right now. When you think about Christmases as a child or even as an adult, what stood out to you? What Christmases or what about your Christmas celebrations stood out or stand out in your memories? Maybe go back to your childhood and think about the things that mattered the most even then. And for me, I can remember a few Star Wars things that I got, because Star Wars came out when I was a kid, X-Wing fighter and some stormtroopers, and those I remember those. But what stirs me, very simple things, like my dad was friends with, probably his best friend was a very quirky farmer who was a microbiologist at East Texas State University. He was a bachelor. He could have never been married. He was the messiest man I've ever seen in my life. But he was the nicest man, named Dr. Royce Lee. Brilliant. You would have never guessed how smart this man was he drove I can remember his 1980, 82 model Chevy Silverado pickup. It was maroon and kind of a cream yellow stripe down the middle. I rode in that truck a lot. And Dr. Lee would come over to our house and he would have eggnog and sit around and talk while my dad was trying to watch football. They were just that good of friends. Dr. Lee didn't care about football at all. I remember some of my brother's friends from college or during summer jobs where he worked at the YMCA camp in Colorado. And some of his friends, like one of the friends still I remember is Dave Wirtz. And he would come spend Christmas with us. And I would love that, just love that. But my favorite memory was on Christmas. This is what we did. Christmas Eve, Santa came by and we did the Christmas thing. We would always go to the Lutheran church there in town. And it was the only time, ironic, isn't it? Only time I really enjoyed going to church as a kid was on Christmas Eve. And we got to hold candles and we'd sing Silent Night, just like we do here. And it was beautiful. It was so peaceful, so right. And then we would come home, we would open gifts, and on the next morning, on Christmas morning, we would load up our 1970-something station wagon full of cardboard boxes packed with our clothes. We weren't that poor, but that's how we packed, and I thought that was normal, okay? Don't judge me. We did. And I was glad to have the cardboard boxes in the back of the station wagon because this is pre-seatbelt law, and I could sit in the back, and I built places for what? For Star Wars figures to have epic battles all the way from Commerce, Texas to 1915 11th Street. If I could take you, you would get the warmest, most cherishable, valuable, richest feeling if I could take you with me as we pulled down 11th Street in Columbus, Nebraska, always frozen over snow on the street. And I can remember you had to go down past Grandma's house and Grandpa's house. We just called it Grandma's house. Grandpa was there too. And we loved them both. And we turned around and you could hear the snow crunching under your tires and you could see all the Christmas lights. And as soon as we pulled in, you could see Grandma's face. A little yellow, this is like a storybook, little yellow house, two-story house Grandpa built. with a huge, huge, huge pine tree like this big around, little white picket fence to the side, cedars in front, and Grandma comes to stand on the porch. Oh, I can hear her voice, real high-pitched, and she'll cover her little mouth with her little mustache. She was 80 when I was 5, so I mean, she lived to be 100. Very, very rich memories, and it strikes me how I lost that as an adult. How did I give all that up? Because it's so simple, right? You don't try as a kid to have a good Christmas. You really don't try, do you? You just do. And it's because children in general don't get trapped. They don't have the trappings of what adults tend to get trapped in. And I think it's ironic how incredibly special, how incredibly sacred this time of year can feel. But at the same time, how it just can get overwhelmed by stress and by things that are so tiring that one of the most wonderful times of the year can often be the hardest when we grow up, quote unquote. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we let that happen? What happens to 1915 11th Street moments? Why do we make things so complicated? And what can we do about it? So I don't want to preach a message or a series of messages that are theoretical or just sound so pie in the sky that no one's ever going to do it. I really, truly want to engage you and ask you to join me in the next 3 weeks to make this the most special Christmas you've ever had, whether you're a child, a teenager, or an adult. And I want to ask you to work hard because it's not going to be easy. And you may not get it done this year, but you may set you on a course that in the next year or two, things can really change in your family. But I do think that, and I'm very hopeful that we can see some real changes this very year, if we'll try. So let me ask you this: what would make the best Christmas ever for you? Just think about it for a minute. What would make the best Christmas ever? For you to look back in 10 or 15 years and go, the best Christmas we ever had, at least until that point, was 2015. Is it when the circumstances finally unfold, they all come together for this perfect, picturesque family Christmas? All the family's home. Everybody's there. And not only are they all home, they're all healthy. And not only are they all healthy, they're all happy. And not only are they all happy, they're all getting along with each other. You ever get a house full of people and everybody's happy for a little while? But I'll tell you what, the cool thing, again, you go back to my grandparents' house, we had people from the attic to the basement. It was stacked in this little house. People sleeping everywhere, on couches, on floors in between beds. We loved it. We loved it. I thought it was amazing. I don't think my dad thought it was that amazing, but I thought it was really cool. It was the house my dad grew up in. I got to sleep in his bed that he grew up sleeping in. It was just really, really cool. We all wanted the north room. But funny how my grandparents always named their room by the direction of the house. The north room was cold, and you got under all these old blankets and quilts and a mattress on the floor. And when the train, which was just on the other side of the neighborhood, came by, it would rumble the whole room. And you just kind of go to sleep to the train going by. It was cool. My oldest brother always got the north room until he stopped coming, or he got married. Then his wife didn't want to sleep in the north room, and I got the north room. Loved it, loved it. What would make the best Christmas? Is that what it takes for all our circumstances to get just right? What if somehow someone can't make it this year? Some of you have kids who are in the military. Some of you have people that just aren't going to make it home. What if someone is struggling with a serious health problem? And you sit down in the living room and everybody knows it. And it's a big deal. What if money is short and bills are tall? What if this is the first Christmas after a divorce or the loss of a loved one? Are you going to check out today and say, well, Casey, this is not the year that I can have the best Christmas ever because, and you would name some portion of your circumstances or your life situation as a reason why you can't have the best Christmas ever. And I'm going to tell you this, if getting all our circumstances to line up just right for this Norman Rockwell, and you need to look that up, young people, if you don't know who Norman Rockwell is, kind of scene is what it's going to take, and you should look that up because I'm telling you what, he can paint a picture of everything we're talking about with just a picture. If it takes that, then I'm going to say this. I would say about 98% of us are eliminated from the possibility of having the best Christmas ever. Right out the gate. It could be 100%, but I don't like absolutes. The good news here is obvious, I think. Having the best Christmas ever doesn't have a lot to do. Please listen close. It doesn't have a lot to do with the circumstances you find yourself wrapped up in this December. It does have something to do with it, but probably not at all in the way you think it does. And I'll explain that in just a minute. I want us to spend the next 3 Sundays walking through how we can put ourselves into a position. Okay, think of it like that. To put yourself into a position to experience the most significant, the most profound, the most awe-inspiring Christmas ever. And I have a surprise for you. It may well be, listen to this, it may well be the harder, the more painful your life situation is right now, the greater your chances to experience a soul-stirring, life-altering season of celebration. I know that seems counterintuitive, right? I understand that. But I want to tell you, when God begins to strip away our false securities and false islands of hope, we can get to the bottom of what really matters. It's funny how if I asked you what's the most important thing during Christmas, the majority of us would agree. Buying and receiving gifts is not in the top 5 or 10. It's not the most important thing. We all agree, right? I mean, I think I've asked this of enough people that I can say that that's not the most important thing. Now, I know there's some credibility and validity in the statement that giving is a good thing and we get something out of giving. I understand that. I get that. But most of us, I'm talking about the process of thinking of who to buy for. Listen, one of the most frustrating things in the world is to buy a gift for someone you're very, very close to. It's just because you outthink yourself. And it becomes stressful. It just becomes difficult. It becomes hard. It becomes laborious at times because we can sometimes try so hard to say too much with the kind of gift that we're giving. So I think it's funny that we would say buying and receiving gifts is not necessarily in the top 5. But if we would look at what dominates your time, and we look at what dominates your thoughts, and we look at what dominates your money, those things would all point to the fact that we do value that the most. Right? No, you don't have to nod your head. Just try it. Think about what's really capturing your thought processes, what's really dominating your time. Oh, it could be cleaning the house. It could be cooking. It could be all the trappings, all the things that are not bad. I'm not poo-pooing any of that. Can I say that? I just did. I'm not putting a bad light or smell on any of that. I'm really not. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think they are good things. Love Christmas trees. Love buying and receiving gifts. But they are not the things that make the Christmas or will make this Christmas the best Christmas you've ever had. They just won't do it. Do you know the American Research Group indicates that in 2015, the average family plans on spending $882 buying gifts for Christmas. The average family. Almost $1,000 in buying Christmas gifts. Now, I don't know your financial situations very well at all. I don't know what you give to the church. I don't look into your median incomes. I don't know that. I'm just guessing from the common sense perspective that if a car repair came up like it does for me, and it was $882, you'd be set back, wouldn't you? You'd be like, oh, That's going to come from savings that you didn't want it to come from. No, what the point is we don't just generally in America have $882 of surplus income sitting around somewhere that we can just buy stuff. But we make it happen. We do make it happen. And the interesting thing about that is it says that's a priority to us. We make it happen. We get it done. It's not an unreasonable number. That's a pretty typical number. And if you have 4 kids, people don't think about Christmas when they have 4 kids. Then it's not $882. I remember when I was a kid, I'm old enough to say this. I remember way back when I was a kid, I had about a $50 limit. And I thought that was a bunch of money, right? And I'm looking through the Sears and J.C. Penney toy catalog. I could get a lot of Star Wars stuff for that and a BB gun to boot. Research shows Americans' most stressful, research, not just me guessing, that the most stressful and least joyful thing about the holidays are financial stress and time spent shopping. I think the time spent shopping is gender biased. I think that's mostly male. I'm teasing. Maybe not. The point being, we love this time of year, but we have a tendency, check this out, we have a tendency to spend it doing the things that we value the least. We love this time of year. We know it's sacred. We know there's a holiness to it. We know there's a richness to it. We know there's a value to it. We know, and people get on the radio and they say, what's the most special thing to you? I listen to 107.7. It's Christmas starting like in November sometime, and I just love the music, and I listen to it. And they'll always have somebody on there, and they'll say it's all about family, and they love that. But if you follow that person around, research would say they don't spend as much time with family as they would doing things to buy stuff for family or get ready for family, and there's a Mary Martha dynamic going on there. We love this time of year, but we have this tendency to spend it doing things that we value the least and that cause us the most stress. Ironic, to say the least. So what can we do about it? Are we trapped in the vicious cycle of a materialized Christmas celebration? I would say not hardly. Let's pray. God, I'm just going to ask you to help us get to the heart of the matter. I don't want to preach a sermon, God, today. I really, really don't. I want us to hear from you, and I want us to prep our hearts so we can have an amazing season of celebration, no matter what our health is, no matter what our finances are, no matter where our relationships stand, that we would be wrapped up in the mystery, the wonder, and the awe of Emmanuel, God with us. And we are with you and with each other. We have so much at our fingertips that we're just walking by. Would you help us today? We desperately need you. In Jesus' name, amen. You know, it's not all that different than the first Christmas, is it? Mary's pregnant with a baby. A census is going to be taken. They load up on a donkey. Can you imagine? I've talked about this before, but I don't want to take my wife on a 2 or 3 hour trip when she's 9 months pregnant in a car with heat or air conditioner. Probably air conditioner if you're 9 months pregnant. The windows are down. Snow. Anyway, I was having a flashback. But can you imagine that journey? I don't care if she's walking or riding. It wasn't easy. And they get to Bethlehem because everybody has to return to their city of origin. And so Mary and David are there by design because God has designed that the Messiah, that Jesus is going to be born in the town of Bethlehem. But they're from Jerusalem. So they have to have circumstances that are all orchestrated by God. Isn't it amazing that he says, no, we'll put it on Quirinius' heart to order a census be taken, and everybody has to go back, and they're there, and they come to the inn, and the inn, the hotel, the motel, whatever it is, it's full. I was wondering about the innkeeper today, because that was a real man. He really saw Mary and Joseph. They really walked right into the inn, and he really said, "We'll have your room." Don't you think? What do you think? I was wondering this week, what would happen if he knew that in that pregnant mother's womb was the Messiah, think he would have made room? I'm just guessing. I don't know. But I'm guessing he might have knocked on the first good Jewish couple's door and said, would you mind letting the mother of the Messiah and the father of the Messiah to stay here tonight so I don't have to sleep in a manger? I'm pretty sure that they would have made room for because that would be most important, right? It'd be easy then. They didn't realize what was most important. They didn't realize what was standing in front of them, all right? The most important people in Bethlehem that night found shelter in a cold, dark, dirty manger. I love manger scenes, by the way. I really do. We have one we put on our sofa table every year. I'm going to do that today, I think. I think about it. I think about the reality of what it was like there, whether it was a cave or a stable or I don't know. But why were the most important people in Bethlehem in a manger? Because there wasn't room for them. There wasn't. That's the literal reason. Now there's certainly a supernatural providential movement there that God chose the manger, right? God chose the manger. All right? But in reality, in the innkeeper's mind, he missed it. He didn't know what was going on. And I want you to tie that together with how you're approaching Christmas. Sometimes we just look right past the Messiah. So we don't have room. I don't have room in my budget to give to Lottie Moon. I don't have room in my time to spend with family or worshiping. I don't have the energy because I'm exhausted from shopping, setting up things. We don't have room. We just look right past what's most important, what really matters about Christmas. And I think that's the struggle we have. I really do. We just don't make room for what matters in our lives. Even though we say that matters, we don't do that. Instead, we learn to fill up everything with other things. And it's really a battle between obligations that we assume and take on and priorities that we let slide. Because we know better. No one's pretending that we don't know. So what really matters most? I know. Jesus does, right? I could answer that question for us. If I said, what matters most about Christmas? And we would all say, Jesus. Yes, right. We get it. We understand that's it. But what matters most when it comes to how we spend our energy, how we spend our time, how we spend our money celebrating Him? What matters most there? What matters most to us isn't really the question, though. I know that's a weird thing to say. What matters most to us isn't what really matters. Because we have a God in heaven who knows us better than we know ourselves. I would like for you to stop and just soak that in for a minute. You have a God, a Father in heaven, who knows you and loves you and cares about you more than you care about yourself. And He knows you better. We would be wise, really wise, to learn from Him today, to recapture, to refocus, to gain the perspective from Him on what matters most to Him. We're spending our time right now on what matters most to us. We're already doing that. Because it's a foolish thing to say, I know I'm coming in the back door and it's not fair, and I set you up. It's a foolish thing to say, family matters most, Jesus' family matters most, but here's where I spend my time and money and energy. Hey, church, you're lying to yourself. You do what matters most to you. You do it. You speak with your actions. You may theoretically know something should matter most, but you do what matters most. You do it. I do it. Okay, so we're not going to get anywhere, really not going to get very far, unless we can swallow hard and accept that reality. We're already saying, it's more important to me to fulfill the things that I feel obligated to fulfill than to pursue the things that I know intellectually should matter the most, that matter most to God. But here's the cool thing. God's Word is really, really consistent in answering this question of what should matter to us because what matters to Him. And I think it's going to surprise you. It surprised me again to realize that what matters most to God, let me ask you that. What do you think matters most to God during the Christmas holidays? What do you think matters most to the Father? Walk through this. You're going, let's just start in July. June, July, August. I got to start in June. August, September, October, November, December. Oh, God's priorities are all different. All of a sudden, it's the Christmas holidays, and suddenly, God has a brand new set of priorities of what's really important. No. You know what's cool is what's sacred about this time of year and why it's special is because it helps us gain a focus on what's always important to the Father. And it feels good. It feels right. But it's not a once a month, once a year, 1 month long focus for God. This is His kingdom focus. He didn't go, wow, it's holidays. We're going to celebrate the birthday of my son. We've got a whole different set of priorities. He doesn't do it. There are two favorite passages of Scripture that really focus in on this. And the first one I want you to look at is Micah 6:8. I'm not going to expound on them long, don't worry. Okay? Just want to look, they're simple. Micah 6:8. He has told you. I like this. Hey, God, what's important to you? Micah says back to us from the heart of God, He's told you, oh man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justice, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. What's most important, God? Do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with me. I know, but what else? It's Christmas. Do justice. Live justly. Treat others mercifully. And walk humbly with me. Just two things that God speaks through Micah there. He uses the term require, doesn't he? A pretty strong term. What does God require of you? You ever wondered that? God, what do you want me to do? Most of the time we're begging God for an answer or a felt need, and we say, God, just tell me, what do you require? What do you want me to do right now? And I'll do it. And the unstated part is, if you fix my problem. God, if I just knew what you wanted, I would do it so you would alleviate the stress. Wouldn't it be cool if we could go to the Father and say, God, I just want to do what you want me to do? And if He said, hey, Casey, why? Because you know best. And I don't. Now we'll get somewhere. Because God doesn't bargain well at all. We don't ever get Him in a position where He's crying for mercy or says uncle or, oh, man, you got me there. He says, all I want you to do, what I require is that you live a life of justice or equality or fairness among the people that you share life with. That's what I want you to do. I just want you to treat them with equity, with justice. I want you to treat them fairly. And then he tells them to love kindness or to love mercy. To value greatly a lifestyle of treating others kindly and mercifully. To do that, by the way, we have to stop giving people what they deserve. Do you want what you deserve? Do you want people to treat you like you deserve to be treated? I mean, by your actions and your consistencies and inconsistencies? Do you want justice from God every time you fail Him? Or do you need mercy? Justice that we looked at just means to treat people fairly and kindly. Mercy means to treat them with compassion in their weakness and in their brokenness, understanding we're all on the same playing field. Focus on what's best for others. That's really all he says. Value the welfare of others greatly. Love justice, act mercifully, treat others with mercy. Mercy just means this. Value the welfare of others. This is God's economy 12 months out of the year. This is what I want you to do. Jesus follows up if Jesus follows up on anything, because really he's the one that inspired the first statement too. But here in physical body and form with an audible voice, he says that he echoes this. In just a minute, but I'm going to back up. I've skipped the last part. And he says, follow God with humility. Walk humbly with your God. I don't know what that picture is for you, but for me, I literally get a picture in my mind, and I don't have a face or anything, but I can see the Lord walking here, and I'm right next to him, just slightly behind him, but ever close to him. And that if he were to turn slightly to the left, I would turn slightly to the left. If he were to turn slightly to the right, I would turn slightly to the right. I would notice his gait. I would hear his cadence, and I would go where he goes. That's what I picture as walking humbly with God means. So value the welfare of others greatly, and love and humbly follow God as a way of life, not as a means to an end. Please be honest with yourself if you're trying to walk with God as a means to an end. So you'll fix your finances or your relationships or other things. God very well may have orchestrated the circumstances that you're in order to teach you to walk humbly with Him. And instead you're trying to walk humbly with Him to get Him to alleviate your circumstances. Jesus comes after Micah, as I said, and he says this in Luke 10:27. He answered the Pharisees, saying, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." Didn't he say the same thing Micah just said? Treat others like you want to be treated. Treat them fairly. Treat them with mercy and kindness, and walk humbly with God. Love Him with all you've got. Everything that matters most summed up in those two things. It may be May. It might be August. It could be December 25th. But God is still there on those two things, saying what matters most. For Him, for you, for me. To love other people like we want to be loved. To focus on them, to give thought to them, and to walk humbly with Him. This is all God ever asked of us. Of course you and I want to have the best Christmas ever. Why wouldn't you? Who would throw that out there and say, nah, I think I'll have a terrible one this year? Or it can come in fourth. You know, I have three others that I think I don't ever want to top. Who wouldn't want to have the best Christmas ever? Of course we all want to have that. But if the best Christmas ever depends on having the best circumstances ever, then we aren't ever going to get there. So I need you to do this. I need you to eliminate the thought that the best anything in God's economy depends on your circumstances, okay? I need you to do that little eraser trick that you can do on your phone when you're editing a picture, and you just I love to get the big eraser on there, and you just whoosh, swipe everything out that you've made on a picture or whatever, and I need you to do that to your memory when it comes to thinking of circumstances as being some kind of means to having the best Christmas ever, because they'll never get you there, because you know as well as I do that your circumstances are not under your control. The vast majority of them are not. You know that. You know that. There are two things I've learned by the age 45, and then I'm going to sum this up with some practical application. First one is I don't always know what's best for me. Kelly does, but I don't. Now, I don't say that tongue-in-cheek. I mean, she is a wise lady. But I wanted to go to Texas Tech my sophomore year in college, late in. I worked hard. I was ready to sell my brand new Dodge Ram 50 stick shift blue truck. I bought it for $10,000, brand new. Was working at the paint shop at the East Texas State University physical plant, paying it off $323 a month, I think, in 3 years. And I was ready to sell it and go to Texas Tech because I had a girlfriend there. I wasn't a Red Raider. I had a girlfriend there. That's the honest truth. And somewhere along that line, I talked to my best friend, Charles Crawford, born on the same day as I was, March 13th, 1970, 30 minutes later than me. I was older than him. I pointed that out once or twice. I talked him into it. I talked to Charles and I said, let's go to Texas Tech. Guess who went to Texas Tech and who didn't? Charles went to Texas Tech. I didn't. I thought it was the best thing to do, and something happened and things changed, and a year and a half later, I met Kelly. Man, I'm so glad that God doesn't let me do what I think is best for me, because a lot of times I don't know what's best for me. I think I do, but I don't. And the second thing I've learned by age 45 is sometimes I do know what's best for me, and I lack the willpower to carry it out. I was home with 2 sick kids for 4 days this week. Not my plan. Not theirs either. I mean, I'm not blaming them. Viruses will be viruses. Kids going to preschool for the first year shall bring home illnesses. Although I do believe it started with Braden's wrestling partner, which I told his mom that yesterday. He says, you know, your son made Braden sick and made my son sick and my other son sick, and I missed 4 days of work. I'm not bitter, though. I stayed home, but Carson, I got all way off. Carson last Sunday night wanted to make something. He likes to cook. He's a really good cook, by the way, for a 12-year-old especially, but actually for anybody. And so he and Kel, they didn't want to go to the store, so they just start looking for ingredients to stuff that we already have. And usually, sometimes it turns out like, okay, I mean, some chocolate chip something. I don't know if we made everything like that. But this time, I walked in there, and there was a masterpiece, a thing of beauty. I thought it was peanut butter, that stuff Dottie made that was so good. Peanut brittle. I keep wanting to call it peanut butter brickle or something. And peanut brittle. I thought it was that. And I said, what is in that? It smells good. And he listed off like corn syrup, 2 cups of sugar, pecans, cinnamon, and brown sugar. I said, let me have that. And I didn't have my hopes up high yet. But I ate a piece. I'm just telling you, some of y'all are going to get that for Christmas because it is good. I sent a picture to Kelly on Tuesday. I said, I cannot be trusted at home with this. And I had a whole handful of it in my hand. And it was gone after I took the picture. And every time I would come in there, I was like, I can't eat that. It's corn sugar, it's syrup, it's cinnamon, it's brown sugar. There's nothing healthy in there, especially in large quantities. And I was consuming it in mass quantities. I couldn't help myself. I couldn't even bring myself to throw it away. I couldn't think about the fact that my Levi's, I'm telling you, they don't fit anymore. I'm on a new belt loop this week. I knew it wasn't good for me. Now I got to not eat as much, but I didn't have the willpower to carry it out. Sometimes we don't even know what's best for us, right? And sometimes we know what's best for us, but we don't even have the willpower to abstain from it or to engage it. We don't always know what's best for us, but God does. God does. Always know what's best. Now, secondly, when we do know what's best and we don't have the strength to do it, He does. Paul said, now to Him who is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or imagine. He just keeps escalating it. He's saying Jesus can do whatever Jesus wants to do. All that is in the realm of good and righteous and noble, He's capable of, and will let you do the same thing through Him who indwells you through the Spirit of God. God knows how to lead you into the sacred season best. So why not take Him at His word? God knows how to lead you into the sacred season the best. Why not just take Him at His word? Okay, there's a lot of words in there. Jesus said this. He said, I can sum all this up for you. Love me with all you got. Love other people like you want to be loved. Treat your neighbor like you want to be treated. Give thought to them. Put your agenda behind you for you. Put their agenda and God's ahead of you. If you pursue that, if you pursue God and others, I don't have to guess. I can guarantee you, you'll have the best Christmas you've ever had in your life. If you can put aside all the trappings of obligation, all the trappings of materialism, all the trappings of what the world says you got to do, what people expect you got to do, and you just say, you know what, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to focus on Jesus and other people today. This is a 12-month-a-year deal. But we'll especially find it significant and powerful during this season. So here are two simple ways to do that. I want to walk through this quickly. I'm not going to go through it. I want to ask you to challenge yourself to do this. Start every day from now until Christmas. Okay, that's I don't know how many days that is, 19. And I want you to start connecting with God as Emmanuel. When I was meeting with Wally, and I didn't ask permission to use this, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's Wally, and he'll let me do this. And if he didn't, what do you do? Shoot me? Maybe. That's okay. But I would always ask Wally, and he would ask me in our discipling relationship, Wally, you connecting with God? I've asked other people this too. You connect? And sometimes he would respond back with doing a quiet time. And we would talk about the fact that you can do a quiet time without connecting with God at all. You can have a devotional time and never connect with God. Are you having an experience with God? Are you engaging the living presence of Jesus in you through the Holy Spirit that's in you? And I want to challenge you to do that this Christmas. I want you to focus in on and connect with Him as Emmanuel. The name means God with us. And that's the heart of Christmas. God coming to us, being with us. Connecting with Him is more important and more than just doing a quiet time or spending some time praying or reading an obligatory devotional. And here's some ways I'm going to just blow through. Take a walk to do this. You want to engage with God? Obliterate the rut of quiet time, habitual routine. Okay? Just get rid of it. If you don't walk away going, oh, I was with God today, then do something different. Take a walk and where you can be alone and talk out loud to God. Now, some of you have told the story. I used to do this across the street. I would get here a little early and I'd walk and pray out loud. And one time I was particularly caught up in my conversation with God and I just stopped and I was praying. I don't know what I was praying about, but I woke up. There was another walker standing right in front of me going. I said, that's all right. I was just praying. They took a detour. Take a walk. What about read the Psalms out loud? Find the Psalms. Psalms are particularly good at this, and they just have great titles to kind of tell you which psalm is what's about. And just try reading and say, God, this is my prayer, and read it, but say it to God as you're reading, and see what that does. Or turn on instrumental music as you read and pray and reflect, and see if that stirs something. Not just fluffy music. Put something on that has substance to it. And maybe go to the quietest part of your house and maybe just sit there and envision Jesus there with you. Don't just know it, envision it. Use the God-given imagination that He's implanted in your brain and your heart and your soul, and envision Jesus with you. If you're like me and maybe you're outdoors a lot, or Mike or Tony and Tina or others, and maybe you're out deer hunting or you're outside doing something, envision Him with you. Just picture it. Because what you're picturing is not a fairy tale, it's reality. Because He's with you. Imagine that. And then ask Him to speak to you. Or just say, just ask yourself, what would He say to me right now? Pay close attention to the thoughts that come after you say something like that, okay? Assume they're His words to you. You just asked Him to speak. He's a good, good Father. As we've sung, He'll speak. Or maybe you just drive into the country and you just speak to Him freely as you drive alone. Sometimes that windshield time with a Father is really, really good. Again, take time to listen as much as you talk. You'll be surprised at how clearly He speaks. Maybe you just select a passage of Scripture that comes to mind or is a favorite of yours, and you spend just some real quality time reading and reflecting on it. Don't move on from it after a day. Go back to it tomorrow and the next day and soak it in and drink it in deeply. Maybe, this is something that's been particularly helpful to me, is write out your thoughts to it. Write a prayer to God. And what's been absolutely profound is to write what I think His response is to me. Never had clarity from the Father like I have with that. Just saying, I will literally start Casey, comma, and then I'll write out what I hear Him saying. It's amazing. It has been amazing. And then here's the second thing. Look for ways to bless and engage others throughout this season. Look for ways to do this. Be intentional about doing it. And let's go beyond buying a gift, all right? Maybe focus on making, and I'm going to give thanks to George Blazakli, help me think of some of these things that I think are really rich, and this is one of them. Maybe focus on making special memories with someone instead of just buying gifts, or in addition to, or maybe in place of. Creative, thoughtful, Spending time thinking and praying. Here's one of the things I'm thinking of is, what can I do for I'm not replacing, this for gifts, but what can I do to help my boys look back on 2015 and say, I remember that Christmas. Dad did whatever it was. You might think this is crazy, but I'm going to let Griffin climb up on the roof with me when Kelly's not home, and we're going to put up the Christmas lights. I'll hold on tight, and Kelly will be on the bottom with a trampoline probably. But, by the way, Braden did it without asking when we were in Texas. I was up on a 2-story house, and I hear this clunk, clunk, clunk. I think it was Braden. It was either Braden or Tanner. And it was Braden. Had to be Braden. And I look over on the extension ladder, and this little 4-year-old face looks up at me. Ah! I didn't have a cell phone to call Kelly. I just said, stay there. Don't panic. Nobody panic. Stop panicking. That's how I get people to calm down. It works great. Here's a good one. George said, have you ever received a gift and worked hard at just appreciating what was given to you instead of going, oh man, I got to get them a gift now. What did I get them? Did I get them a gift? But just soak it in, the fact that someone thought of you and gave you a gift. And maybe instead of just rushing out and trying to return the favor, going tit for tat, you ever wonder, like, I bought them a $20 gift, they bought me a $20 gift, neither one of us like our $20 gifts. We could have bought our own stuff. But what if you just wrote out a handwritten thank you? Instead of just saying thank you, you say, here's why this matters to me. It doesn't matter if it's the ugliest sweater in the world, okay? You say, stop and think, hey, you took the time, energy, and the money to think of me, and I want you to know that matters to me. So if you get a letter like that, hey, take it as authentic, okay? Because we're going to do it authentically, not just because I said it, right? All right, so take time to find out someone's favorite meal or dessert. I've already told Carson what mine is, and make it for them. Just make it for them, okay? Or if you receive a gift card, this is another George one. If you receive a gift card, and you're not in desperate need, what would it be like to say, God, who really needs this? And go give that gift card away. Somebody gives away your gift card, don't be offended. Just consider it a double blessing. You bless the person you gave it to, and they bless somebody else. Wouldn't that be cool? What about sponsoring a child overseas? You find $30 a month to help somebody who has nothing have a lot? Or what about saying, you know what? We have one of the best disaster relief organizations in the world in Kansas, Nebraska. And World Hunger, what about donating there? What about taking some of my money that I'm going to spend on other things and I'm going to give to World Hunger or disaster relief? And you say, well, I don't know where to start. Go to cancsb.org and look. It's right there. It's amazing. You can have that impact immediately. Maybe you don't have all that. You say, I can rake leaves. I can shovel snow if El Nino ever leaves. And we can, Maybe you could buy somebody's breakfast or coffee for them in McDonald's or wherever you're at. And don't just do that and walk off. But when that person says thank you, you say, hey, can I tell you why I'm doing that? And you can say something like this, really, and authentically we could all say this. I'm not trying to be a good person. I'm not trying to get your thanks. I'm just trying to focus on other people because I tend to be selfish. And this Christmas time, I want to be different. So I wanted to bless you because I'm a Jesus follower. And I want His name to be great. And if I spend $1 on coffee and that helps, I just wanted to do that today. So maybe you can pass it forward and then you could walk off, or you could say, is there any way I could pray for you? Maybe you could sign up to help at the Rescue Mission. One of the greatest ministries in Topeka, Kansas is happening at our Rescue Mission. Maybe you say, well, they got all the help they need. Maybe they don't need your help, but you need theirs. Maybe you need to be there and see what it's like for people who don't have what you have. Get a new perspective. There are going to be Christmas trees at every grocery store and every store in town just about helping you adopt a child or a family for Christmas, or at your school. Can you imagine what it would be like to have your name on one of those trees? No one's begging for that award. But can you imagine being adopted and someone blessing your family or just your kids with a Christmas of love and warmth and generosity? There's a lot of things we can do to make this the best Christmas ever. But we got to determine what's most important. And we don't do that by asking ourselves what's most important to us. We do it by saying, God, what's most important to you? And He'll say it's the same thing that's important every day. Love me with all you got and focus on other people this Christmas, and we'll go a long ways. Let's pray together. Father, would you do it? We can't. You can. We're begging you because we want to get right. We want to be the church you want us to be. We're not trying to be famous. We're not trying to be huge. We just want to be disciples who know and follow and are becoming like Jesus. And I thank you for that. I thank you for a conversation I had in the hallway today with one of our members. He just told me a simple story about something he did for his dad, and man, God, it was just awe-inspiring to see how this man is becoming more and more like Jesus. So thank you for the work you're already doing here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Continue it 1,000-fold, God, and give us the heart to follow through on what you've spoken to us today. In Jesus' great name, amen.